Hello everybody, Road Warrior 627 here, and welcome to another Thoroughbred Racing preview here on my channel. Today we're going to talk about the Preakness, the second race of the Triple Crown here in 2021, race number 13 at Pimlico in Baltimore on May 15th. Post time for the first race is 10:30 in the morning, Eastern Daylight Time. Preakness goes as the 13th, 6:47 p.m. post time. I've got two guests today. They're probably the two most common guests on my channel. Say hi to Sammy Roseman.
Hi.
And to Jack Sargent of Racing Rundown.
Hello.
Okay, very nice to have you guys here. Now, we're not going to drag this out because it doesn't make sense to drag it out because it's really not worth it. Any thoughts on what's going on with Baffert, guys? Anything you guys want to say?
It needs to be quiet.
It's definitely a PR disaster for horse racing. I am going to, on my podcast, be very negative about Bob Baffert. So, I don't want to drag this out too long, but I do want to take a little bit of a positive angle on this because this is something that not too many people are talking about. Yes, this is a big problem. Yeah, I think Baffert should be held accountable, even if, the ointment case, which it now looks like that's pretty likely, the case of him giving Medina Spirit an ointment that he didn't know had test positive in the biggest race of the year, looks bad for the whole sport. So, hopefully Churchill Downs does the right thing. But the important thing, and not too many people are mentioning this, is that horse racing has something to fix stuff like this. Because for too often, horse racing has been behind the eight ball in too many things. But last year, the efforts of many years finally came to fruition when we were able to pass the Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Act that got through Congress toward the end of the last session. So very good to have that piece of legislation through. And I think that that's the most important thing that people aren't talking about. We have a way to fix stuff like this. And so if the Horse Racing Integrity Act is implemented the way that I think everyone expects it to be doing, then, these kind of problems can start to become a thing of the past, and we can have real standards across the country. And when stuff like this happens, real accountability.
Yeah, I pretty much completely agree with everything you just said. The first time I heard something, I heard it was 21 picograms. I thought, well, pico means times 10 to the minus 12, so, I mean, why are people freaking out? Then I saw it was 21 picograms per milliliter, which, okay, that's a bit more. And then I heard it was twice the legal limit. And obviously, anybody that knows me knows I think Baffert cheats. And I never root for him. Except when he had American Pharaoh and Arrogate until he ruined him. So, yeah, I'm not a Baffert fan, but I was kind of surprised with the low level that people were freaking out so much. But, yeah, it's bad. And it doesn't help his reputation, which, in my eyes, was already bad. But we'll
I'd
move
agree.
on. Yeah, of course. And we'll move on. Sammy is going to help take us through this field of 10 for the Preakness, which includes Medina Spirit and his potentially more dangerous horse, Baffert's potentially more dangerous horse, Concert Tour, who drew the outside. Sammy, take it away. Let's learn about this field.
On the rail, we got number 1, Ram. He won a first level allowance race at Churchill on Derby Day, the first race on the card. They let IRAG go off at 9-1. Just think about that for a second. And it took him 7 tries, and then he finally broke his maiden in a maiden claiming 50. This is just another classic Dwayne Lucas wanting to have a horse in the Preakness, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the case of him. That the big danger with him is Dwayne Lucas is a 6-time Preakness winner, and he has had horses win the Preakness before when no one expected that they were going to. The most recent example, and really the only recent example as of late of big Lucas success, is Oxbow. So I think that this horse is a lot different than Oxbow in terms of his running style. Oxbow was a front runner and he was able to steal the race on the front end. Ram is going to need a pretty fast pace in front of him to be able to even have a chance to close in this race. I really don't see it. I'm not going to say that Wayne Lucas shouldn't be running these horses in the Preakness because, the horse is coming out of 2 straight wins. So you could say he's in the best form of his career, but doesn't really look like he belongs with this group in terms of his talent. And I would definitely agree that this is an example of Dwayne Lucas trying to have a starter. This isn't the 90s, though, so as much as it would be, I would personally love to see it because Wayne Lucas has the long history of success, but in reality, Ram is a horse that really doesn't have much of a chance in this race.
I agree. Number 2 is Keep Me in Mind, who actually, I believe, ran a very good race in the Kentucky Derby. Ran 17 by 8.5. He was very wide, and he closed very nicely. He's winner of the Kentucky Jockey Club, 3rd in the Breeders' Cup. I feel like he has an outside chance. I feel like he can run well. I just don't know if he can get up to the leaders like Medina Spirit and Concertor and horses like them.
I'm going to sound like a broken record in this preview, but same thing that applies with Ram also applies with Keep Me in Mind. His first 2 runs this year were awful. I was not happy with either of those 2 runs. Rebel, I kind of gave an excuse to because he did miss some training in between the cancellation of the Southwest in that race when Arkansas had some winter weather that postponed the Southwest Stakes and also postponed his ability to work. But Bluegrass really put me off, but Sammy's absolutely right. He ran a much better than advertised race in the Kentucky Derby. I always have a cliche that I use all the time. There are these horses that run really good 7th place finishes in the Kentucky Derby, and they don't get talked about because they are 7th, and you wouldn't necessarily think in any other race 7th is a good race, but he did run a good race. It's just the problem is he's going to need a pace in front of him. He didn't really get that in the Kentucky Derby, and he did close, so you could say if there was a bit faster pace and he wasn't as wide, probably could have run in the money. I would not have been surprised if that's the case, but he's going to need a absolute radioactive pace to win the Preakness. And again, like I said with Ram, don't think it's going to happen. He does have a better, at least a better post position though than he does in the Derby. And even still, he was in the fourth post in the Derby. But again, 20 horses, crap kind of happens, and he got stuck out very wide. So I think with less horses in the race, 2 posts, he's not going to be in as much of a danger to be caught wide in this race.
Yeah, I just don't know if he's fast enough, to be honest with you, because that Derby was a really, really good race. And I'm not the kind of person that likes to bet horses off one race, so that's why I didn't really involve him here. But that was very impressive over a track that was obviously, especially later in the day, sort of a conveyor belt, especially evidenced by the Derby. That was great to see him so far behind at the start. He dropped back even further, and then he came with a nice run there at the end to get beat 8.5 lengths at 50-1. So definitely a good run from him in the Preakness, in the Derby, excuse me. The speed figures aren't there though. I wouldn't use them.
Yeah. Number 3 is your Kentucky Derby winner for now. Medina Spirit, who I actually picked in the race. I know a lot of people are against. I know a lot of people think he's going to win, but they just don't want him to win because of Bob Baffert and the situation, which I can't blame them. But the reality is, in my opinion, who's going to beat him? Who's better than him? Concertor ran a very bad 3rd in the Rebel. I did not like that at all. That wasn't a good field. He should have easily won that race if he was that good, like he was hyped up to be. But Medina Spirit, he just has the speed. Unless somebody else goes with him, is he really going to get beat in this race?
And that's the real problem that I have with the Preakness is that I have made this clear over on Racing Rundown. I do not want to see Medina Spirit win this Kentucky Derby. I haven't posted my episode this week, but both myself and my co-host will make it very clear. Neither of us want to see Medina Spirit. I think it would be a disaster for the sport if he wins the Preakness, but I don't see who's going to beat him in the race because there's only 3 horses in here that are going to show any kind of that have the potential to show any kind of early speed. And I'm very doubtful that Midnight Bourbon is going to show the speed that he has, but I don't think that he's going to be itching to get into a fight with Medina Spirit on the front end. Concertor's breaking from the outside. I could see it happening with, if Mike Smith wants to get him in a really good position, but I don't think Mike is going to try to duel Medina Spirit into submission. So at the end of the day, I don't know who's going to beat him. And the reality is if Medina Spirit is in front at any point of the race, he doesn't let horses pass him. He didn't let horses pass him in the Bob Lewis. He didn't let horses pass him in the Kentucky Derby. And the races he lost, Sham Stakes, was behind Life is Good the whole time. San Felipe, same thing. He was kind of running interference for Life is Good. And then in the Santa Anita Derby, they didn't put him on the lead. If he's on the lead, very possibly could have won the Santa Anita Derby. So I don't know how this horse, if he's on the lead at the quarter pole, I don't know how he's going to get beat. If he wasn't beat in the Derby, I don't know how Eighth Mile Short beats him here. So very much against the idea of him winning, but I do think he is the most likely winner of this race.
As someone who's going to try and beat this horse, and I'm going to try and make money, I obviously expect, or hope at least, that he could get past. And hopefully he'll get past in the stretch by the three horses I'm going to give out later on top of him. But yeah, he's a very tenacious horse. He doesn't give up, which is something to be admired by. For whatever reason he does that, we can all speculate. But he is a fighter. But I'm trying to make money, and I'm going to try and get horses to pass him in the stretch. He's got to go to the front in here. I don't see what else he's going to do. He's stuck down toward the inside. Good thing is he doesn't have any speed inside of him, so Velasquez will get him right over to the fence, unless he has a horrible start, which I don't expect to happen. I kind of see the two Bafferts out there just trying to run 1-2 around the racetrack, and obviously that exact is going to pay nothing, so I'm going to get some other horses involved. You'll see in just a minute. I'll try and beat them.
4, who I was probably going to pick if Medina Spirit wasn't in the Preakness, is Crowded Trade. I don't know why, but it just seems like another classic Chad Brown, Klarovich, Castellano, long shot going to win the Preakness. But I think he's good, but I just don't know if he's going to get past Medina Spirit. But he definitely is interesting. Came off a third in the Wood Memorial and barely got beat in the Gotham, and was a nice winner on his maiden. But Chad Brown definitely has confidence in this horse because he doesn't. Knowing Chad Brown, he doesn't usually step horses from a maiden to a grade to like a Derby point prep race, 50 points usually, unless he thinks something high of the horse.
The good thing to say about Crowded Trade is when Chad Brown runs horses on the Derby Trail, he usually doesn't run horses that suck. There are a couple instances of that, but by and large, when he runs horses on the Derby Trail, they don't suck. Highly motivated. He had a poor trip in the Derby. I don't think the Derby's reflective of the talent of a horse he is. Crowded Trade also doesn't suck either. He didn't. Chad passed up the Derby with him. Narrow loss in the Gotham. I had him that day. Very, very upset still. That I did get beaten there, but it was a good run for him. I thought of the favorites, obviously he ran one of the better races in the Wood. I think Andrew would contend that Wayburn may have run a better race than him. But the question I have with him is I'm not really sure how far he wants to go. Looking on the dam side, it looks a little bit more like around a mile area. I'm not the biggest fan of horses coming out of the Gotham, going longer lengths. So I am not against him, but I don't know that he's the most likely winner. And like I mentioned earlier, there's not too much speed other than Medina Spirit, and horses don't pass Medina Spirit. I've yet to see that be the contrary. So until that happens, I'm not going to be going with Crowded Trade here.
The last Preakness winner I picked was a Klarovich horse trained by Chad and ridden by Castellano. I'm hoping that the next Preakness winner I pick is the same thing, because I'm going to pick Crowded Trade in this race. And let's be honest here, I'm kind of picking him, and I'm kind of cheating, because I'm going to pick another horse that's very similar to Crowded Trade as well in this race, who I'm technically going to put second, but the thing is, I can't really differentiate the two. And I may as well give the spoiler alert now. That's Risk Taking the 9, who's the other Chad horse. I like them both. Crowded Trade is just a little bit faster on paper, and that's why I'm going to take him between the two. You got to make a pick. You can't be a sissy and not choose between the two. So I'm going to take Crowded Trade. I thought the Gotham was a great race by him. He did get a pretty good setup, and he still got beat by Wayburn. Yeah, I had Crowded Trade too, Jack, that day. And in the Wood, he was coming from behind, kind of like Bourbonic was, albeit not as far back. And that was a race, although on paper the pace was slow, it was really a race that helped the closers and hurt the horses toward the front. And Wayburn was toward the front, and that's why I think he ran so good in the Gotham coming from behind, and he ran so good in the Wood Memorial, being closer to the pace. And he's still my tentative early Belmont Stakes pick is Wayburn. But as far as Crowded Trade, Who else do you want in here? This field is not that good, and if you want to try and beat Baffert, you got to get somebody who at least has the potential to run a race big enough. Now, let's look at figures. I used to be a pretty big speed figure guy. I still am, but only for potential. Let's look at the Derby. The Derby got a 101 Briz. The Gotham got a 104 Briz, but with that nose finish between Wayburn and Crowded Trade. That was around a 1-turn mile. Am I that worried about the 2-turn mile and 3/16? Honestly, I'm not. I think distance is the biggest equalizer in horse racing, as a lot of people will tell you. Am I worried about this horse getting 9.5 furlongs? Not really. Pedigree's decent enough. I'm going to take him. Got to take a shot. Can't pick Baffert.
I don't blame you. But number 5 is Midnight Bourbon, who would have been the Preakness favorite if no Contractor or Medina Spirit were allowed to run. Like, people thought which they probably weren't allowed to run, but that's a different story. But Midnight Bourbon, Irad getting the mount up is, I feel like it's significant because you're gonna. I mean, Mike Smith is a good, but he's not the same level as he used to be, in my opinion. But now you get Irad, and you got to give Midnight Bourbon credit. He always runs his race. What is that's right? He's always right there. And I feel like for him to win, he's gonna have to challenge Medina Spirit, which I don't know if Irad wants to do. I feel like he might just sit like third or second, but he's definitely, if you want to play against Medina Spirit or Contractor, he might be the horse to go with in this race.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the run that Midnight Bourbon had in the Kentucky Derby, it was mentioned earlier about Keep Me in Mind. Midnight Bourbon, though, in my opinion, is the horse that ran the best race in the Kentucky Derby that nobody talked about. Mike Smith kind of made a tactical error toward the start of the race when he put on the brakes and didn't after Midnight Bourbon broke a little bit slow. He didn't get him up to not necessarily to the lead. He wasn't going to be challenging Medina Spirit, but didn't get him up forwardly placed and tried to sit him where a trip similar to where either a Mandaloon or a Hot Rod Charlie would have sat. That's where I think Midnight Bourbon would have been the best at. He obviously didn't get that trip because of the positioning, and him being really far back in the early part of the Derby, I think, is what made it so that he was running sixth. I think if he's in a better spot, a position more where like either a Mandaloon or a Hot Rod Charlie, not necessarily in that exact spot, but that kind of area, if he's there, can very easily run in the money. That was a very, very strong effort for him. Running sixth in the Kentucky Derby, very good sixth place finish that nobody has really said anything about. And I think he has a chance in this race. It ultimately depends, though. I think he's going to be the linchpin horse in this race, because if he runs with Medina Spirit, if Irad decides to say that he wants the lead and nobody else is going to get him, then Irad could do that and could run out Medina Spirit, and then good luck to everyone who pick their horses underneath if that happens. But the lesson I learned in the Derby is when there's only one other speed horse in the race that's going to challenge Baffert, I'm not going to bet that happening on that one horse. And the one horse to challenge Medina Spirit was Soup and Sandwich in the Derby, and Soup and Sandwich wasn't fast enough to keep up with Medina Spirit and faded rather early in the race. And I don't want to depend on Medina Spirit getting to the lead on my picks in the Preakness. So I'm going to go against him just because I don't know how Irad's going to ride the race and where he's going to sit. If he goes to the lead, great. I'm going to be very happy, because that's going to mean that it's going to be a lot harder for Medina Spirit to win the race. And if he sits off them, good luck getting past Medina Spirit.
To me, the problem with Midnight Bourbon is very simple, and that's the fact that he's going to take a ton of money in here. Where else is the money going to go? Probably Chad's two horses are going to be maybe the fourth and fifth choice. This horse is going to be the third choice. I'd be very surprised if anything else but that is true. Because people are going to see that race in the Derby. People are going to point to Smith's mistakes, which I've seen all over Twitter, them talking about Smith's mistakes. I don't trust Ira. And look, he's a great rider. He pulls off some of the most incredible shit. The one thing that Ira doesn't do is he doesn't utilize speed horses correctly all the time. And he's going to do that with 2 Bafferts in here that are probably going to go to the front. I don't believe it for a second. And if you get 5, he's 5-1 on the morning line. I wouldn't take this horse at 8-1. I honestly wouldn't be too upset if he won, because that means Baffert loses. It's a win-win for everybody. But as far as a pick and as far as the money's concerned, I think you're going to get in that 5-6-1 range, and I just don't think he's worth it at that price in here. I don't think he's that much better, or I don't even think he's better than either of the 2 Chad horses, to be honest. Maybe he's on par with them. Chances are, and this can always change, but I highly doubt it, you're going to get a better price on the 2 Chad horses than you're going to get with this horse. They're going to bet Asmussen. They're going to bet the trip in the Derby. They're going to bet IRAD. If you've been paying attention to Belmont, they've been killing IRAD at the windows for no reason, and he's had more favorites run up the track than I can count. It's ridiculous how much they bet this guy. And yeah, he's good, but in a situation like this, where this is a horse that should probably be right on top of the pace early, I don't trust IRAD to do that, because that's the one flaw I've seen with him throughout his entire career. No thanks. He wins, good for him, not with my money. He wins, I lose.
I'd agree. Number 6 is Rombauer, who actually skipped the Kentucky Derby to point to this race. I feel like he likes the distance. I feel like, but the same thing with what Jack has been saying, he's going to need a pace to run into, and is he going to get that pace? He's good enough. He might be good enough maybe to win this race or run second or third, but I don't think he's going to get that pace to get that chance to win this race, in my opinion.
I'm just going to completely acknowledge this right now. I'm going to be grasping at a ton of straws with this, but I actually think this horse has a real chance to run well in this race. I really like the tactic changes that he had from the Bluegrass, if those hold up going into this race. Because, you look at his career, he's been relatively consistent. He's got a couple of wins, including a stakes win underneath him, grade 1 placed. His run in the Breeders' Cup wasn't terrible, but, it wasn't anything to write home about. He was 5th, and, that was a day where closers really came in that race, especially Keep Me in Mind. So, I don't know that if he runs a deep closer like he was running in every race before the Bluegrass, and he's not winning this race, but if he runs the way he did in the Bluegrass, which, he was relatively forwardly placed. I mean, that was probably the case because there were a bunch of closers in the race behind him, and nobody else was going to be near the 2 other horses, highly motivated and essential quality. So, he was just the one that ended up being the closest of them. But if he sits that kind of trip in the Preakness, I don't think it's impossible for him to get a good trip and be able to win this race. Again, he's going to fall into my category of can he get by Medina Spirit, but I already said that I wasn't going to pick Medina Spirit purely out of protesting that. So, I'm definitely grasping at straws here with this, and I understand that, and I accept this. Don't take this pick really too much, but I'm going to take Rombauer on top in this race.
I don't blame you for a protest pick, and he's okay. You gotta like the shipping stats for Mike McCarthy. You gotta like the recent performances and the improvement in the figures, especially over the last 3 starts. Last start of last year and the 2 starts this year were both pretty good. Workouts have been good handily out at Santa Anita. I just don't know if he's fast enough. He just hasn't run that one race to me that shows that he can beat the 2 Bafferts. And that's what I'm looking for in here. I'm just looking for potential to beat the 2 Bafferts, and I haven't seen it with this horse yet, and that's the reason I can't do anything with him in here. Again, you beat Baffert, hell, you're a winner in my book, but he's not going to do it with my money.
Number 7 is the Japanese import, Francisco de Ina. I believe that's how you pronounce it, if I'm correct. I remember I liked him a lot in the UAE Derby. I just don't. He's second off the layoff, and I just don't really like that effort in the UAE Derby. The top two finishers aren't bad. I was thinking about this. I know this is off topic, but if Panadol ran the Derby, I don't think Medina Spirit wins, because he wouldn't went after him.
Probably not.
Yeah. But I just feel like this horse, I just think he's going to need to take a big step up to really compete in this race. His times aren't terrible, but I'll need to see him improve a little bit.
My case with him is the exact same case with Ram. I think he and Ram are going to be the two horses that are the farthest back in this race. And, if they blaze it on the front end, then he could come running. He reminds me a little bit of Lonnie, at least on paper, coming into this race. That Japanese horse from 2016 that, was always coming late with hot paces. And, if he gets that, could come late. Don't really think that's going to happen. So, I'm going to stay consistent with that. None of these really far behind horses are going to be coming late, and I'm going to take a pass on him in here. But he could be an interesting horse for the Belmont. I know that traditional logic says closers don't win the Belmont, but there are obviously exceptions. So, gets a start under him in the United States. This could be, if he runs okay in the Preakness, you could say Belmont, a possibility with him. But in this race, no, thank you.
I mean, this is a total guess. There's not much else to be said. This is a total guess with this horse, unless you have inside information. You've been at Pimlico watching the workouts. In a race where he's probably going to be far back, and a race where I think you're going to have a tremendous amount of talent to come and get the two Baffert horses, which might try to just walk around the track. That's not the kind of setup I'd want. No thanks.
Also, for advantage for him, if you want to look at something, the horse that he lost to on November 7th in Japan, Lemon Pop, is a Godolphin horse that came back to win a stake race later in the month. So that's an advantage to that horse. Number 8 is Unbridled Honor. I actually have a lot to say about this horse because I think this horse is very interesting. What's his odds on the morning line?
15.
15-1. I have a lot to say about this horse because, listen, I'll just go through each race, and he is excused for every single race beside one where he won. In his first race, he was 5 wide all around the track, and he still managed to get 5th, being by a lot of lengths, like 8 lengths. In the second start, where he lost to risk-taking, actually, and he lost to the Reds, who ran 3rd, he was bumped at the start, pretty much lost all chance after that. Just bumped. When you get bumped, it's hard to come back. He went to Tampa Bay for a maiden race, and he won, where he didn't have any trouble. Comes back in the Tampa Bay Derby, was 5 wide all around the racetrack. He has an excuse there. And in Lexington, he was 4 wide, and he had a rail, but King Ferry nobody was beating King Ferry that day. So he has an excuse there, a little bit, since he was 4 wide. Now, he's coming to the Preakness, because Tom Pletcher, I feel like, wouldn't enter a horse in the Preakness if he didn't feel like he had a chance, at least a little chance. I feel like he can get a good setup. Well, Luis Saez not getting aboard. I think he can run a decent race at a price.
The interesting thing about this horse is Todd Pletcher is notoriously a trainer that is not known to enter horses in the Preakness. You look at the number of horses that he's run in the Preakness. For a trainer like him, very surprising few amount of horses that he's entered in the Preakness. So I was definitely very surprised to see him entered here. But the effort that he had in the Lexington was a pretty good effort. I will admit that. But at the end of the day, I don't really see a lot of upside with him. Again, I think that he's going to be a horse that's going to be coming from very far back. And like I've said the whole time, broken record. Where's the pace going to be? If you can find me the pace and you can find me the horses that are going to run with the Bafferts, then sure, go with him. But you could run okay underneath. But in terms of a win, find me the pace, and then I'll give you the chance to I'll give you my thoughts on him if you can find the pace. But I don't think the pace is going to be there, and if the pace is not going to be there, I'm not going to be there with him.
That's the theme of the whole race. Who do you trust to actually be able to pick up pieces in here if there's a slow pace? Who's going to actually have the talent to come running late after the 3 and the 10 as they waltz around the racetrack? That's what it's all about, and I don't think he's fast enough to do it.
Number 9 is Risk Taking. The other Chad Brown entry. For me, for Risk Taking, He just had no excuses in the Wood Memorial. He was a closer and he had everything go his way. He just flat out did not show up. He actually faded in the stretch. The thing about risk taking is he's inconsistent. You don't know what you're gonna get in risk taking. You'll get the 7th, 6th, 7th, then you'll get the 2 first. You don't know what you're gonna get. He could come out and win this race, which is a possibility, but I doubt it. I know Jose's a great jockey, but I would much rather have Irad than Jose in this race.
Like I said with Crowded Trade, when Chad Brown has horses on the Derby Trail win Derby Trail races, they don't necessarily suck. And I don't think Risk Taking is a terrible horse, but I question a lot of things about him. The Withers was an okay run. You look at the back class from that, it wasn't a terrible race, but at the same time, I don't really know how good Risk Taking is because the Wood was very uninspiring, and I was against him in the Wood. I didn't think the Wood was going to go too well for him. Obviously didn't, and I don't really see a reason why the Wood went as bad as it did, other than he's not this kind of level. So I need to see a big improvement with Risk Taking. It's not like the win in the Withers was a great race either, and you see the inconsistency with him. So if he is Withers class, then possibly he could run okay, but I think he's going to be the longer of the two Chad horses for a reason, and it's kind of ironic because he's the graded stakes winner, and Crowded Trade is the horse that is not a stakes winner. So, but I mean that's how racing works, and Crowded Trade looks to be the better of the Chad horses. And if I was going to go with one of the Chads, I would go with him. I do like that he is going to be the higher price of the two Chad horses. So if one of them does get an on the board finish, then you could make some money off of that. But I'm not going to be betting this race underneath. So, Andrew's going to probably say the same thing he's been saying, that it's a who do you trust thing. And it's for me, what is going to be the thing that causes him to win the Preakness? Because I don't see anything in the past performances that indicate that he's going to run a grade 1 effort this weekend.
Yeah, so with Risk Taking, he's obviously, if you dig deep, you could see it's not really that hard. Crowded Trade's more talented. Risk Taking, now I told you I couldn't separate them before, right? Well, it's not because of that. I think they both have decent things going for them. I think Crowded Trade is clearly the third most talented horse in the race. We talked about the pedigree, that it should be okay, but it's not the greatest for distance. Risk Taking seems like the kind of horse that might do better at the 1 1/8, 1 3/16 distance. He's got the maiden race at the 1 1/8 last fall when he was still a 2-year-old, and he's got the Withers. So he's not as fast as Crowded Trade, but he might appreciate the distance more, and he's got that one big fig from the maiden race that puts him there if he can run back to it. To me, it has to be about potential, because who else is going to catch these other two horses? Now, I'm going to be betting win bets on both the 4 and the 9 to try and upset this field. Obviously, the 4, more talent. The 9, probably going to like the distance more. Are they both good enough? Probably not. Am I going to pick Baffert? No way. I have to try and find somebody to beat him, and I'm going to use Crowded Trade and Risk Taking to do that. Working decent enough coming into the race. Couple of nice 5-furlong works at Belmont, evenly spaced apart. Week before the Preakness, another Derby day itself, May 1st. Always like to see consistency in the works. They've been pretty fast. I like the longer works for these races, just breezing, going nice and easy. So I really appreciate that with him. And look, he's done this before. Chad's done this before with a horse that seemed, let's just say, too slow on paper. And the thing is, if these two horses run to their best race on paper, they might not be that slow. They might be okay. It's all about potential. That's what I'm going with here. Cloud Computing didn't look like he really had a chance except for one figure, but he still pulled it out and got there in a pretty weak Preakness, just eking out Classic Empire. but he still did it. And obviously, this Preakness is not that strong of a Preakness either. So I think it's the right kind of time to take a shot. And I'll give away more of the strategy with the two Chad horses and the two Baffert horses in just a little bit after we finish up.
Number 10 is the other Bob Baffert horse, Concertor. The thing about him, he was very disappointing in the the Arkansas Derby. I remember I was super high on Concertor. I thought he was a real deal. I mean, I still think he's a solid horse, but I was very disappointed in that Arkansas Derby race. But the thing that confuses me is why is Joel Rosario not on this horse? That was very confusing.
I mean, that part really makes no sense as to why he's not on Concert Tour, and I'm not going to try to explain that. But, I mean, everything that Sammy said is absolutely right. I mean, Arkansas Derby was a complete step back performance for him. I was never Concert Tour's biggest fan. And, you look at the races that he's won, he didn't have the lead in the San Vicente, but that also wasn't the greatest effort for him. And then, his maiden victory had everything his own way. Rebel, absolutely the case. They handed the race to him on the front end. I have no idea still to this day why Florent Giroux took back Caddo River. And, I think what we ended up seeing in the Arkansas Derby is what we were going to see from Concert Tour in the Rebel. Had Florent Giroux done the correct thing and taken Caddo River to the lead in that race. So, Concert Tour for me seems to be very coming into this race, but and he is going to be on the outside, so he does have the potential to cause Baffert to beat himself in the Preakness. Baffert beat himself in the Preakness last year with 1,000 words. So if you are thinking that there's no way that Baffert's going to lose this race, that was kind of a little bit of the thinking that I know my co-host had last year, that there was no one really that was going to beat Authentic. And Authentic was very similar to both Medina Spirit and Concert Tour in the ability that Authentic needed everything to go his own way on the front end to win the races that he won, and that happened with him. Happened with Medina Spirit, happened with Concert Tour in the Rebel. Didn't happen with Concert Tour in the Arkansas Derby. Didn't happen with Medina Spirit in the Santa Anita Derby. So it's certainly possible that Concert Tour goes to the front and those two kind of knock each other out. Don't really know how possible that is. I think the 10 post though really does kind of squash some of the conspiracy theories that Concert Tour would be in this race to block for Baffert. I didn't think that was going to be the case anyway, because this is a horse who is a graded stakes winner, and he did it with Restoring Hope, but if he pulls any funny business with Concert Tour, the Wests are going to take the horse away from him, and I don't think Baffert's going to give up a graded stakes winner just to get Medina Spirit a Preakness win. You could disagree with me, but I think also the fact that the episode at the Derby means that he's going to do everything he can to stay out of the public eye. So I don't think Concert Tour is going to do any funny business. I haven't heard much of that since the positive test, but that was the speculation. I did want to address that. I don't think it's happening. I think Concert Tour could possibly win if he gets the right setup and Medina Spirit doesn't get to the lead and he does. And if they do run with each other, then that could be good for us because they could try to knock each other both out. But not with him, not with Medina Spirit. I'm hoping that something happens that Baffert doesn't win this race.
Oh, that's the dream, to just have the 3 and the 10 knock heads. I think they're going to try and run 1-2 around the racetrack as everybody else thinks. The question is, how fast do they go? And let's be honest here. I don't think Concert Tour is that good. I think he could be as good as Medina Spirit. They both have really had things go their own way in a bunch of these races. As it seems, Baffert horses always have things go their own way. But he's got that 10 post. He's got speed. Who else is going with the 3? It's going to be him. And he's going to be sitting right outside there. And they go 47 and change to the half. And it's going to be one of them two crossing the wire first. You can almost guarantee it. Unless we take a shot and we try and beat them, as I'm going to do. But you have to involve this horse. You have to involve this horse somehow. You have to use him in any multi-race bet. Because he is by far, he's sitting right outside. The horse is going to go to the front, the Derby winner. He is in just as good a position as the 3 horse is going to be. The only thing that goes against him is Medina Spirit is a fighter and doesn't let people go by. But it's Baffert, it's Smith. Give me a more lethal combination than that, even though it kind of makes me want to throw up.
I'm not going to try to give you a more lethal combination than that. I mean, that makes perfect sense. And if Concert Tour does run the trip that Andrew thinks he's going to run, then he's probably going to be the longer price of the two Baffert horses. So if you're purely trying to pick this race in terms of getting a win bet right, you may want to throw up in your mouth while you're doing it. But throw some money down on Concert Tour to win if you're trying to go with you're trying to get a win in this race, because I think it could be more likely that Concert Tour gets it. I mean, it's all going to depend on the break, and at this point it's guessing, but could certainly happen.
And with that, we have completed the analysis of the field. It is now time to give out our Preakness selections and plays. Who wants to go first?
I guess I'll go first. For my top selection, I know, people are not going to like it, but I'm just going to go with Medina Spirit. I just don't think anybody could beat him. It would be surprising if he loses this race, in my opinion. For second, I'm going to go with Crowded Trade for second. For third, I'm going to take a shot with Unbridled Honor. I know. I texted Jack originally when he entered this horse. I was like, why is he entering this horse? But then when you look at his PPs, I feel like he has a little bit of a chance. And for fourth, I'm going to go with Contra Tour. And for fifth, it would be Midnight Bourbon.
I guess I'll go next. I already mentioned I'm going to take Ron Bauer. The more and more, I will be honest, originally it was a protest pick, but the more and more I've looked at it, I could see it possibly working out. It is primarily a protest pick, but I do like it a little bit. For second, I'll just bomb this out. I'll go Keep Me in Mind for second, and then just because I think it would be mentally wrong to leave out Medina Spirit. So going to throw in Medina Spirit for third. Highly doubt that this actually happens, but I'm going to bomb it up with the top two. Ron Bauer and Keep Me in Mind. I bombed it up in the Derby. Definitely did not work out. The less said about that, the better. But probably going to be the same case with the Preakness, but I'd rather lose the Preakness and have my dignity than take a horse that I would rather have acid strike the grandstands of Preakness than have Medina Spirit win the Preakness.
That's a line I've used so many times, and it's so true. I'm going to pick this horse. I'm going to pick against the favorite, but at least I still have my dignity. That's a great line, and I've used it in many previews before. I'm going to try and make some money, as I've told you. I'm going to use the two Chad horses on top. If we're going to get technical, the pick is Crowded Trade. I'm really picking two horses. I'm picking Crowded Trade and Risk Taking. Their actual chances of winning, let's say for either of them to win, probably something like 18-1. You're not going to get 18-1 on probably either of them. But I just don't think anybody else can really be able to close. I don't think anybody else in the field has the talent to be able to make it close on the two Baffert horses if they get to walk on the lead. They have the potential with the higher speed figures that they've run in prep races. That's why I'm taking them, and because of what Chad's done before here with cloud computing. I'm going to play both of them to win, and 5 to win on both of those. And then this is the big play right here. I don't know if Pimlico does dime supers. I hope they do, because I'm not playing a dollar super, I'm telling you right now. Dime super box 3, 4, 9, 10. That is the main play for me in here. 3, 4, 9, 10 super box, the two Bafferts, the two Chads. I think you have a great chance of hitting that. I feel really good about this bet. I never say this, but even if the two Bafferts get to walk along on the lead, you still have two pretty decent prices coming up for second and third. For third and fourth. So it'll make the super at least bearable, especially in a race where there's going to be a lot of dead money in the pools because of people betting that don't know what the hell they're doing. So the payouts are always better in these big races because of that. So that's my main deal, is that super box. You're going to ask, why aren't I playing exactas? Honestly, because I just don't feel it's going to be worth it. I think one of two things happens. I think either the two of them walk around a racetrack, the two Baffert horses, and Chad can clunk up for third and fourth. or they wear themselves out, and some combination of crowded trade or risk taking could pass one or both of them in the stretch. That's really all how I see this race being run. I could be completely wrong, as I usually am, but that's what I'm betting on here. Those are my only bets in the race. I'm not playing exactas. I'm not playing triples. I'm also not playing any other races on the card, so I can't give you horizontal bets. I'm going to be watching Belmont. As you know, I do daily selections, as does Sammy, every day for the Belmont Spring Summer Meet. We're going to try and get that turned around soon as well. Finally, I have some time to actually handicap this week and beyond. Things should get much better over there. But I'm just not going to be paying attention much. I'm going to turn the less than pleasing NBC coverage on with about 20 minutes to post and see what happens and try and get lucky here, because honestly, this is a race that we've spent 45 minutes on already. We probably should not be taking this race as seriously as we are in light of all that's happened. I almost feel bad that we're dedicating so much time to it.
I will say one thing though. Even if Medina Spirit does win the Preakness, it's going to be interesting to see, number one, how NBC handles it, because if Larry Comas yells he's going for the Triple Crown in 3 weeks, because we know that the split test most likely is going to come back positive, and Churchill Downs, hopefully, like I mentioned earlier, hopefully they hold their word. Medina Spirit is going to come down, but at the end of the day, even if he doesn't come down, Medina Spirit, I will guarantee right now, and I don't usually do this before the Preakness, but this horse is not going to win the Belmont. He carried the speed 1.25 miles. I don't know that he's carrying it 1.5 miles, and the Belmont looks like it's going to be too tough for him to be able to get everything his own way. I wouldn't even be surprised if some trainer decides to stick a rabbit in there if he wins the Preakness, just to make it easier for their horse to be able to win the Belmont. I would certainly love to see that happen, because then it would open up the race. But don't think Medina Spirit's going to be a Triple Crown winner, and if he is, God help us all.
I completely agree. I want to say something, and I'm so sorry. I should have said this at the beginning of the video. I can't stick it in now. It's too late. But I'd love to see this horse win the Preakness. Kinda. Because obviously I'm going to the Belmont. I go to it every year now. This year, finally, I'm going all 3 days. I'm going Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Obviously, I don't live far away, so just a nice little 35-minute drive, and I'm there. I want to boo this guy so bad there. I want to see this horse lose in person. That would make me feel so warm inside. And it really hasn't. It has nothing to do with the horse. The horse has done nothing wrong. We all know who's done something wrong. And to hear a chorus of boos there would just be so tremendous and so weird at the same time. So I'm kind of rooting to be able to see that. But with an honest heart, obviously you don't want that to happen. That's with my cruel heart that I want to see that happen. Kind of my evil side. On the right side, though, yeah, I'd like to see another trainer I hate, Chad, win the Preakness. Anything else, guys?
About it.
I don't think I have anything further to say. I will say, though, I mean, it makes you wish that we could have the 90,000 people at Belmont, because, the attendance caps are probably going to be there. And, I would just love to know what that would sound like, a full Belmont Park, Belmont Stakes Day crowd, letting out the boo birds for Mr. Baffert, because that would definitely sound louder than most boos that I've ever heard at a race.
I'll do my best. I'm going to be sitting just past the 8th pole, so I'll be pretty far away. But the good thing is, though, this year with the Belmont, with the less people, I might actually be able to get down to the paddock and to the winner's circle and actually see some horses up close, which never happens, because there's going to be only 11 to 15,000 people there. Might actually be pretty easy to get around, which never happens on Belmont Stakes Day, and usually does happen every other day. That's why Belmont's such a great place. Hopefully they don't ruin it anymore. But with that being said, you can watch the Preakness on NBC, the less than pleasing coverage. I'm sure that half of it is going to be filled with you-know-what. It's going to be drama. It's going to be a mess. I'm not going to watch it. I'm going to be putting the race on with 20 minutes to post. and seeing what happens along with the rest of you. The rest of the day, obviously, we'll be paying attention to Belmont over here. Thanks for listening, everybody. Pay your bills first and try to enjoy this race. Have a good one.